What is up, Wizards fans? Welcome into a quicker than normal, not our usual hour podcast, on location episode of the Bleeding Wizards podcast. I'm coming to you from Capital One Arena. I'm here for the Atlantic 10 tournament. A10, pretty good basketball conference, maybe a little down overall this year, but still some really good NBA draft prospects because it's in Capital One Arena. It's a nice opportunity for the Wizards and for me to get out and scout a couple of these guys that, maybe names for them to know and for us as fans to know come draft night. So we're going to talk a little bit about those guys, but first we're brought to you by Stateside Vodka and their Surfside Hard Iced Teas and Bet Online. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all betting on March Madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest. Bet Online continues to be your number one source for sports betting. For every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Just a little programming note. Jihadi and I were going to record today. He had some stuff come up. I've got some stuff coming up tomorrow. So we're going to push till next week and then just kind of do like a more thorough recap of where the Wizards are at. They've been winning a little bit more lately. So we just want to talk about what that means for their lottery odds. As you've probably seen, Utah is hot on their heels here in the Tankathon. So we'll see what that ultimately means for the Wizards' chances. But yeah, whether the Wizards get the number one pick or not, there's still some really good, interesting guys in this year's NBA draft. So that's really what I wanted to focus on here today. I'll be giving you kind of periodic updates throughout the tournament here, and I'll probably go to a March Madness site as well. So there's an opportunity for me to see a few more of these prospects actually in action to, between now and the end of March or early April, essentially. So let's maybe just start with the best person I saw today. As I'm sure you're well aware, the Wizards will have their own number one pick in this year's draft, likely a top five pick, hopefully even higher than that. But they also own the Memphis Grizzlies pick, which Tankathon currently has projected to be around the 26th pick. So I was trying to think of guys who could be potentially options for them in the 20s. And there's one name here that I got to see tonight, who it's a guy I love. I probably mentioned him on the show at this point, or if you follow me on Twitter, you've seen kind of my man crush on this player, and that's St. Joseph's Rasheer Fleming. He's listed at 6'9", probably really more of like a 6'8" wing forward type. He's a mobile big, but he's also got the speed and lateral quickness to stay with some guys on the perimeter. This is Fleming's junior season at St. Joseph's. Didn't really do much as a freshman. Started 18 to 31 games, averaged about 5.5 points there and 5 rebounds. And then last year as a sophomore, he really saw a kind of an uptick for St. Joe's in both minutes and just productivity overall. So averaged about 11 points and 7.5 rebounds last year. Wasn't much of a shooter, but he's really come on strong, especially in that department this year. He's up to 15.5 points every game. Really active on the glass, 8.5 rebounds, which I like, 1.4 assists. Just sort of a nice ball mover for them. The ball doesn't really stop with him. He's not going to take 27 dribbles. So it'll be somebody that fits in with the Wizards' new young core of just guys that are willing passers, which is nice. But the great part is he's really active defensively, uses that length and quickness to his advantage with, regardless of the matchup here. On bigger guys, he can catch up to them and kind of do a lot of things, and then also stays with those quicker guys as well. Averaged 1.5 steals on the season so far and 1.6 blocks, and relatively low turnovers for a guy that plays 31 minutes a game at 1.6, which is great. But here's the nice piece. We want 3-and-D players, right? So on 4.5 3-point attempts per game, Flemings is averaging just under 42% from three, which is awesome. And he's about 67% on twos, so he's really efficient around the basket. Got the very nice analytical profile, shots either around the rim or from three. He's a 72.5% free throw shooter, so not amazing, but I think it looks, fairly fluid. It's a little flat sometimes, and there's like a little tiny hitch, but it's lessened over time, and I buy that he'll just be like a solid, high 30s shooter for his career while playing really good defense. He'll be a guy who'll run the floor. So if the Wizards do get a dynamic point guard, somebody who pushes the pace in transition like a Dylan Harper, he'd be another great running mate for him alongside Koulibaly and Sarr, Keyshawn George, Bub, and company. And obviously, he'd be somebody that could really benefit from some looks from Jordan Poole here in the short term as well. Just talk a little bit about this actual game. It was a weird one. St. Joseph played LaSalle. LaSalle's not a particularly good team in the A10. Their coach, Fran Dunphy, who's a legend. This is going to be the last game he ended up coaching as a career. He's announced before this tournament that he was going to retire. So it was just sort of like weird vibes throughout. St. Joseph's got up by 20 plus points at some point and then absolutely dropped their pants and just kind of like took a crap on the court here in the final 6 minutes, let LaSalle come all the way back. St. Joseph's ultimately ended up winning 75-70, but just not like a particularly good performance across the board here, just a little lackadaisical. Fleming was active, just not as efficient as you would want him to be. Finished with 11 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 block shots. 4 or 10 from the field, so not as great from 2 as normal. But 2 of 4 from 3, just kind of solidly productive there. So Fleming's one of those guys, I just feel like he moves with purpose. He's just never kind of wasted motion. And it reminds me a little bit of like a bouncier Otto Porter, if you can kind of picture that sort of player. Maybe some Jeff Green vibes in there in terms of the kind of athlete he is, if you're trying to picture a physical profile. So give him a watch the rest of this tournament. I think he'll really be worth it for the college basketball fans out there and the guys looking for some NBA draft prospects to pay attention to. Another local guy here on the team, DMV native Eric Reynolds II. Not a very good game for him. He's having a down shooting year overall this season. He went 0-4 from 3 today, down to 32%, but it's a guy that, was a high college basketball shooter the last couple of years, high 30s overall the previous 2 seasons. It's like an 87% free throw shooter. So just has really good touch and just has not knocked down those looks. And then Xavier Brown, the other guard on this team, 21 points tonight, was really good when they needed him, but not particularly efficient either. 7 of 21 from the field. But for a 6'1" guard, he had 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals, which was really nice for folks to see him do a couple other things there and to be active. Another game tonight that had a little bit of maybe potential pro interest was the George Washington win over Fordham. George Washington won 88-81. That was another one that came down to the wire. GW got saved by Trey Autry, 23 points for him, 7 of 13 from the three-point line, and 3 in a row in the final 2 minutes to basically win them the game. A couple of the fringe pro prospects on this team still don't know what to make of Darren Buchanan Jr., powerfully built, 6'7", wing forward hybrid there, just bulldozes through people. He was solid tonight, more aggressive. He just dealt with an injury earlier in the year and just has never looked to be the player we thought he would be and the player he was as a redshirt freshman last year. But tonight finished with 14 points for Darren Buchanan, 7 rebounds, and then I think, 1 block on the night. And then Rafael Castro is a really interesting one. So he's a junior center for George Washington. Castro had 17 points tonight, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, which was really good. Kind of playing like the Atlantic 10 version of Alex Sarr a little bit, some short roll passing and things like that I thought were really interesting. Really good rim protector, runs the floor really well. Just a bouncy guy, realistically could have been the A10 defensive player of the year. He and Fleming are both really good players defensively in this league, which is super cool to watch. He finished on the second team overall for the league itself, which is, a bit of a slight in his opinion. So he wanted to prove everybody that he was a first teamer here tonight. And he looked the part. He had some foul trouble in the first half. So, just finished strong for GW. So it's cool to see the local team get a win here. There's just plenty of other basketball left in the A10 tournament. And I think a few more NBA draft prospects for me to be able to update you guys on throughout the rest of the week here. If you are looking for some basketball, in town to go watch, these games are relatively cheap at Capital One Arena. Tomorrow, local teams face off here in GW and George Mason. George Mason finished first in the conference, or tied for first with BCU, and they won both matchups against GW earlier in the year, which is kind of big for them, against a local rival here. But they were really close, and GW easily and could have won both those games, and maybe should have won at least one of them. So I think the third matchup of the year here will be really heated for those two teams. So if you're looking for something to do with your Friday afternoon, it's at 5 p.m. here at Capital One Arena. So I think that's a really good option for you. And just a couple other teams here. You've got VCU playing. Max Shulga for them is a guy that I think is on some NBA radar. So that's worth watching. Dayton will be playing here as well. They've got a few interesting players that, I think warrant a little bit, I would say, of just NBA consideration. If not this year, some guys might be intriguing down the road here. So, someone like Nate Santos, potentially 6'7" senior, averaging 14 points and 5 rebounds. Could someone like that find themselves on an NBA radar? I think that's really kind of the question. He's 42% from three on about 5 attempts per game. Like I said, 5 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists as well. So Nate Santos, pretty active player for Dayton. So just a couple guys here that I think are worth watching. And then George Mason, could a Darius Maddox or Jalen Haynes potentially, after next season, I think he'll have one more year of college basketball. Could one of those guys find themselves on an NBA roster? It's definitely something worth considering. So if there are anybody that you're seeing in any of these tournament games here in the A10 or any other ones in college basketball that you want a deeper dive on here on the show, I'll get a few smarter draft guys to come on and we can talk about, really whatever player you want here. Just kind of a quick recap there for you. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I did not get to check out the Wizards game, so I get to go home here at 10 o'clock from A10 Metro back for an hour, and then I will be watching the Wizards. So hopefully they had a good one. My guy Matthew Heisman said that Keyshawn had a really good game tonight, so that'll be exciting to go home and watch that one. So I won't spoil it if anyone else also hasn't watched it with any more detail than that. But yeah, this was your A10 tournament check-in. Let me know if you guys like this. It's about that time with 18 games left for the Wizards where they're going to start thinking about the draft a little more strongly. I did see one scout for them in the building here tonight, but hopefully, because again, it is their building, there are a few more people looming around that weren't just quite as obvious. It'd be nice to see Will Dawkins' appearance at some point here while I'm hanging around. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. I'm sure Troy Weaver will appear at some point as well. He's pretty active with a lot of these local teams, and he's obviously got experience from running the front office up with the Detroit Pistons. So we'll see what kind of prospects he likes. But that's really it for this one. Like I said, I appreciate you all. We're presented by betonline.ag, and like I said, Jihadi and I will be catching up for a longer deep dive next week. So if you do have any questions for that, let me know. All right, talk to y'all soon.